cashmere throw while simultaneously pushing all the covers to one side. Her face was partially obscured, but he could see long eyelashes resting against cheeks that showed signs of exhaustion even in sleep. Dominic stood frozen, processing the situation. Had hotel security been compromised? Was this an elaborate setup by a competitor seeking insider information? He'd dealt with corporate espionage before. Or perhaps she was a journalist trying for an exclusive with the notoriously private tech mogul. But as he observed her steady breathing, the slight furrow of her brow, something told him this wasn't planned. The woman looked genuinely exhausted, her body curled protectively, as if she'd been carrying a weight for too long. She murmured something that sounded like more morphine and clutched the blanket tighter. Despite the strangeness of the situation, Dominic found himself intrigued. He could wake her and demand explanations. But something stopped him. Perhaps it was the peaceful vulnerability in her face. Or perhaps it was simply that her unexpected presence had disrupted the perfect predictability of his carefully orchestrated life. Instead of raising the alarm, he quietly backed out of the room, retrieved a spare blanket from the closet, and made himself comfortable in the guest room. "Whoever you are," he whispered to the empty air, "you look like you need rest more than I need answers right now." Elena woke to golden sunlight streaming through partially opened curtains. For a disorienting moment she had no idea where she was, then remembered her cousin's luxurious hotel upgrade. She stretched languidly, feeling more rested than she had in months. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Then she noticed the breakfast tray on the bedside table, a silver pot steamed with what smelled like freshly brewed coffee. Beside it sat a plate of pastries, croissants, pain au chocolat, and what appeared to be freshly baked scones, alongside a bowl of berries arranged with artistic precision. A single rose in a slender crystal vase completed the picture. Had Maria arranged this too? And was that a decanter of freshly squeezed orange juice catching the morning light? Elena sat up, confused, and that's when she saw him. A man stood by the window, his strong silhouette outlined against the Manhattan skyline. Tall and broad-shouldered, with close-cropped dark hair touched with silver at the temples. He wore tailored charcoal pants and a white button-down shirt, with the sleeves precisely rolled to mid-forearm, revealing strong wrists adorned only with an elegant watch. He held 2 porcelain coffee cups, steam rising gently from both. Elena gasped, instinctively pulling the blanket up to her chin. The man turned, and her breath caught in her throat. His face was striking. Not conventionally handsome, but compelling. Strong jawline, straight nose, and eyes so intensely dark they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. His expression was difficult to read, but there was something like amusement playing at the corners of his mouth. "You looked like you needed sleep more than either of us needed awkward explanations," he said, his voice deep and unexpectedly gentle, with the barest hint of an accent she couldn't place. "Coffee?" Elena clutched the blanket tighter, her heart racing. "Who are you? What are you doing in my room?" He raised one eyebrow slightly. "Actually, it's my room. I'm Dominic Vega, and you are—" Elena looked around, noticing for the first time details she'd missed in her exhaustion. A laptop on the desk that wasn't hers, a man's leather portfolio on the side table, a jacket that would never fit her draped over a chair. Oh my God! Her face burned with embarrassment. "The front desk. They gave me the wrong key. It worked. I'm so sorry. I was so tired. I should go." She started to get up, then remembered she was still in yesterday's scrubs, wrinkled and slept in. "I figured it was something like that." Dominic walked over and set one of the coffee cups on the nightstand beside her. "I was curious who fate would drop into my life at midnight." He studied her with those intense dark eyes. "I didn't expect a woman who steals blankets and mumbles medical terminology in her sleep." "I do not talk in my sleep," Elena protested, automatically, then stopped. "Do I?" Something about morphine dosages and keeping someone stable, he confirmed, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. Are you a doctor? Nurse. Emergency department. Elena covered her face with her hands. This is absolutely mortifying. I'm Elena Reyes, she continued, dropping her hands and attempting to gather her dignity. My cousin booked me a room here for her wedding. Room 1701. Ah, Dominic nodded. This is room 1710. The numbers are easily transposed when you're exhausted. I should go. Elena scrambled out of bed, looking around for her shoes. Hold on, Dominic said, not moving to stop her physically, but something in his measured tone made her pause. Breakfast is already here. It seems wasteful not to eat it. He gestured toward the tray. We can pretend this is a normal way to meet someone for one morning. Elena hesitated, looking from the tempting breakfast spread to the door. She should be mortified, desperate to escape this bizarre situation. Instead, she found herself strangely reluctant to leave. Why aren't you angry? She asked. I slept in your bed. In your private suite. And I slept in the guest room, no harm done. He shrugged one shoulder slightly. Besides, it's the most interesting thing that's happened to me in months. Against her better judgment, Elena found herself settling back on the edge of the bed. She accepted the coffee cup he offered, taking a cautious sip. It was perfect, strong but not bitter, with a hint of cardamom. So, Dominic said, taking a seat in the armchair across from her. You're here for a wedding? My cousin Maria. She's marrying into the Sheffield family. Elena reached for a croissant, suddenly aware of how hungry she was. Dominic's eyebrows rose slightly. Carter Sheffield? His family owns half the real estate in Manhattan. Great, Elena sighed. So I'm even more out of place than I thought. You don't like weddings? Dominic asked, offering her the berry bowl. Elena took a few strawberries. Weddings are fine. I'm just not good at the social politics that come with high society events. Maria married into money. I'm the cousin who works 80-hour weeks saving lives and barely making rent. Sounds like you got the more meaningful end of the deal, Dominic observed. Elena looked up, surprised by his response. Most people don't see it that way. I'm not most people. His dark eyes held hers steadily. What about you? Elena asked, eager to shift the focus. What do you do, Dominic Vega? I run a technology company, he said simply, offering no elaboration. That's vague, Elena noted, taking another sip of her excellent coffee. The corner of his mouth lifted in what might have been the beginning of a smile. I find that specific answers to that question tend to change how people interact with me. Elena studied him more carefully. The perfect cut of his shirt, the understated but clearly expensive watch on his wrist, the quiet confidence that seemed to radiate from him. Realization dawned. Wait, Vega? As in Vega Technologies? The AI and renewable energy company? Dominic inclined his head slightly, neither confirming nor denying. So you're not just wealthy, you're basically a modern-day Tony Stark, Elena said before she could stop herself. This time he did smile, briefly but genuinely, with considerably less weaponry and more focus on sustainable energy solutions. Elena felt her cheeks warm. And I slept in your bed. Perfect, she groaned. This is not how I imagined meeting a billionaire would go. You've imagined meeting billionaires often? Dominic asked, amusement evident in his voice. No. Elena stopped, realizing he was teasing her. I spend most of my time keeping people alive, not fantasizing about the ultra-wealthy. Dominic nodded, his expression growing more serious. Emergency nursing. That must be challenging. It is, Elena admitted, but worth it. Every life we save, every person we help through their worst day, it matters. What made you choose nursing? Dominic asked, pouring her more coffee. The question caught her off guard. Most people asked about the gore or the long hours, not her motivation. My mother was diagnosed with cancer when I was 16, Elena said, surprised by her own candor with this stranger. The doctors were important, but it was the nurses who made the difference in her final months. Their compassion, their attention to the small dignities. I wanted to be that for someone else. Dominic's eyes softened. And your mother? She died when I was 17. Elena traced the rim of her coffee cup. It's been 15 years, but some days it feels like mimosa, as Elena explained what had happened that morning. They were sitting at an upscale brunch spot near Central Park, the kind with white tablecloths and waiters who appeared silently to refill water glasses before they were empty. "It was an honest mistake," Elena said, nervously folding her napkin into smaller and smaller squares. "The room key worked. How was I supposed to know?" Maria, impeccably dressed in a designer sundress that probably cost more than Elena's monthly rent, shook her head in disbelief. "Only you could accidentally sleep in a stranger's bed and end up with a breakfast invitation. And not just any stranger. Dominic Vega." "You know who he is?" Elena asked, surprised. "Everyone in Manhattan society knows who he is." Maria leaned forward, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "He's famously private, practically a recluse despite his wealth. He never attends social events unless they're directly related to his business. Women have been trying to get his attention for years." Elena's stomach sank. "Great. Now I definitely can't go to dinner with him." "What are you talking about? This is the opportunity of a lifetime." Maria's eyes were wide with excitement. "For what? To be his charity case? The exhausted nurse he took pity on?" Elena pushed her avocado toast around her plate. Appetite suddenly gone. Maria's expression softened. "Is that really how you see yourself?" Elena looked away, watching well-dressed couples stroll through the park. "I'm just being realistic, Maria. Men like that don't seriously date women like me." "And what kind of woman are you exactly?" "You know what I mean. I work too much. I wear scrubs more often than real clothes. And the most exciting thing that happened to me last month before this was getting a new coffee maker for the break room." Maria reached across the table and took Elena's hand. "You're also brilliant, compassionate, and beautiful when you bother to notice. Maybe Dominic Vega saw what I've been telling you for years." Elena squeezed her cousin's hand, grateful for the encouragement even if she didn't fully believe it. "Maybe he's just bored, and I'm a novelty. Only one way to find out." Back in her room, her actual room, Elena stared at the contents of her duffel bag spread across the bed. Nothing seemed right for dinner with a tech billionaire. She had packed for a wedding, not a date with Manhattan royalty. Her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. "Still hoping to see you tonight. 7D." Her heart did a little flip. She sat on the edge of the bed, his business card in one hand, phone in the other. What was she doing even considering this? Before she could talk herself out of it, she typed, "I'll be there. Room service?" The response came immediately. "Perfect. Bring your appetite and nothing else." Elena felt her cheeks flush. What did that mean? Just as panic started to rise, another text appeared. "That came out wrong. I meant I'm taking care of everything. Just bring yourself." She laughed out loud, relieved and oddly charmed by his awkward recovery. There was something endearing about a billionaire who could make the same text message mistakes as everyone else. A knock at her door made her jump. A hotel employee stood in the hallway with a large white box tied with a simple black ribbon. "Delivery for Ms. Reyes." Puzzled, Elena accepted the box and carried it to the bed. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a simple but elegant midnight blue dress with a note. "In case you didn't pack for unexpected dinner invitations. Wear this if you like. If not, wear whatever makes you comfortable. D." Elena lifted the dress, running her fingers over the luxurious fabric. It was gorgeous. Not too formal, not too casual, and somehow exactly her size. How had he known? She checked the tag. It was from a boutique in the hotel. He must have asked someone for help with sizing. The gesture was both thoughtful and presumptuous. Was she being courted or managed? Did it matter if the dress was perfect? She held it against herself, looking in the mirror. For the first time in years, she felt a flutter of excitement about getting dressed up for a man. At precisely 7 o'clock, Elena stood outside room 1710 wearing Dominic's gift and the only pair of heels she'd packed for the wedding. She'd spent an hour on her hair and makeup, aiming for what magazines called effortless beauty, which, ironically, required significant effort. She knocked softly, suddenly nervous. Dominic opened the door, and for a moment, all they did was look at each other. He'd changed into dark pants and a navy button-down that somehow complemented her dress perfectly. His hair was slightly damp, as if he'd just showered, and he smelled like sandalwood and something uniquely his own. "You look beautiful," he said finally, stepping aside to let her in. "The dress is perfect," Elena said. "Thank you, though you didn't have to." "I wanted to," he interrupted gently, "and you would have looked beautiful regardless of what you wore." The room had been transformed. The lights were dimmed, candles flickered on the dining table, and soft jazz played from hidden speakers. A bottle of wine breathed beside two crystal glasses, and covered plates waited on the table. "This is a lot," Elena said, trying not to show how overwhelmed she felt. "Too much?" Dominic asked, sudden uncertainty crossing his usually composed features. His vulnerability made her smile. "No, it's lovely. I'm just not used to such attention to detail." "I'm a detail person," he admitted, pulling out her chair. Occupational hazard. As they settled at the table, Dominic revealed their dinner. The hotel's executive chef had prepared a sophisticated take on comfort food. Perfectly seared scallops, truffle risotto, and seasonal vegetables arranged with artistic precision. "I hope you're not allergic to seafood," he said as he poured the wine. "I probably should have asked." "It's perfect," Elena assured him. "I love scallops, but never have the time or energy to cook them properly." Conversation flowed more easily than Elena had expected. They talked about books they loved, places they'd visited, and foods they enjoyed. Dominic was well-traveled, but spoke about his adventures without showing off. He seemed genuinely interested in her simpler life, asking thoughtful questions about the hospital and her patients. "What made you want to be a nurse in the emergency department specifically?" he asked as they moved from dinner to dessert, chocolate souffle with fresh raspberries. Elena took a moment to consider her answer. "I like the intensity, the unpredictability. Every day is different. Every patient needs something unique. It keeps me present in a way nothing else does." She took another bite of the souffle. "In the ER, there's no room for distraction or self-pity or worry about the future. You're completely focused on saving the person in front of you. There's something clarifying about that." Dominic watched her, a soft expression on his face. "You light up when you talk about your work." "Do I?" "Yes, it's refreshing to see someone so passionate about what they do." "What about you?" Elena asked. "Do you enjoy what you do, even if it wasn't your first choice?" Dominic considered this. "I've made peace with it. I'm good at it. And I've tried to focus my company on projects that address real environmental concerns, rather than just chasing profit margins." "That's admirable. It's practical. This planet is our home. I want it to thrive." He refilled their wine glasses. "But enough about work. Tell me about this emergency medicine conference you mentioned earlier." Elena hesitated, then found herself describing her dream in detail. Not just attending the prestigious conference in Switzerland next month, but presenting her research on improving triage protocols in mass casualty events. Research that could save countless lives if implemented broadly. "It sounds like important work," Dominic said when she finished. "Why do you talk about it as though it's just a fantasy?" "Because I can't afford to go," Elena replied, trying to keep disappointment from her voice. "The hospital will only cover a fraction of the cost, and with New York rent and student loans, those are obstacles, not barriers," Dominic countered. "Have you looked into grants or scholarships?" Elena felt a flicker of irritation. "That's easy for you to say. You probably never had to choose between professional development and paying your electricity bill." As soon as the words left her mouth, she regretted them. Dominic's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "That was unfair." "No, you're right," he said quietly. "I had advantages most people don't. But that doesn't mean your work isn't valuable, Elena. Or that you shouldn't find a way to share it." An uncomfortable silence fell. Elena stared at her wine glass, mentally kicking herself for ruining the mood. "Let me ask you something," Dominic said finally. "If money wasn't an issue, would you still want to present at this conference? Is the research truly something you believe could make a difference?" The question caught her off guard. Yes, I do. It could standardize how emergency departments handle mass casualties, potentially saving hundreds of lives. Then it's not a dead dream, it's just waiting. Elena met his gaze, touched by his perspective. You're an optimist. I'm a realist who's seen enough to know that most barriers aren't as solid as they appear. As they finished dessert, the conversation turned to Maria's wedding. Dominic knew the Sheffield family by reputation, and filled her in on some background that her cousin had conveniently left out, including rumors that the bride's father wasn't entirely pleased about his daughter marrying into old money rather than self-made success. Drama at a Manhattan society wedding? I'm shocked, Elena said dryly. Dominic laughed, the sound warm and genuine. It wouldn't be a proper social event without it. They moved to the balcony, where the night air was cool and carried the distant sounds of the city. The skyline sparkled before them, a tapestry of lights against the darkness. It was painfully romantic, and Elena felt a growing sense of unreality. This doesn't feel like my life, she admitted, leaning against the railing. Whose life does it feel like? Dominic asked, standing close but not touching her. Someone more interesting. Someone who deserves this kind of evening. Dominic turned to face her. Has it occurred to you that you might be selling yourself short? It's been suggested, Elena said with a small smile. By people who care about you? My cousin. My colleagues. Smart people, then, Dominic said. He reached out slowly and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Maybe you should listen to them. The touch of his fingers against her skin sent a shiver through her. It had been so long since a man had touched her with such care, such deliberate tenderness. Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Doing what? This dinner, the dress, being so nice to someone who broke into your hotel room. Dominic smiled. You had a key. That's hardly breaking in. You know what I mean. He was quiet for a moment, considering her question. When I woke up this morning, I expected today to be like every other day. Meetings, decisions about technology I no longer feel passionate about, more walls between myself and authentic connection. His dark eyes held hers. Then I found you sleeping in my bed. And suddenly the day had a question mark. I like question marks, Elena. They're rare in my life. So I'm a novelty, she said, trying not to sound disappointed. You're authentic, he corrected. Do you know how hard that is to find in my world? Everyone wants something from me. Everyone has an angle. You're just you. You don't know me, Elena pointed out. I'm learning, Dominic countered. And I like what I'm discovering. He was standing very close now. Elena could see the faint lines around his eyes, the slight shadow of beard on his jaw. He was handsome in that mature, confident way that made her feel both nervous and exhilarated. I should go, she said, though it was the last thing she wanted. Should you? Yes, this is. She gestured vaguely. This is temporary. I'm leaving after the wedding. You live here. We live in different worlds. What if we didn't have to? Elena laughed nervously. Now you're being ridiculous. Am I? Dominic took her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. What if this is the universe giving us both a second chance at something? At what? At not settling. At taking a risk. His voice dropped lower. At finding someone who sees us for who we really are. The sincerity in his eyes made her heart race. This was moving too fast. And yet, it didn't feel wrong. It felt like catching up to something that should have happened years ago. I don't know what to say, she admitted. You don't have to say anything, Dominic replied. Just don't run away because you're scared this might be real. He was so close now that she could feel the warmth of his breath. It would be so easy to lean in, to let herself be kissed by this man who seemed to see something in her that she'd forgotten was there. Instead, she took a small step back. I should go. The bridal shower is tomorrow morning, and I promised Maria I'd help with some things tonight. Disappointment flickered across Dominic's face, but he nodded. Of course. Thank you for dinner. It was lovely. Will I see you again before you leave? He asked as he walked her to the door. Elena hesitated. I don't know. The wedding events. I could be your +1, he suggested. When she looked surprised, he added, The Sheffields always invite me to these things. I usually decline, but for you, I'd make an exception. I don't have a +1, Elena said. Budget cuts. Dominic smiled. I know the groom's family. I'm sure it won't be a problem. At the door, he took her hand again. Think about it. No pressure. Elena nodded, unable to find the right words. He leaned down and placed a soft kiss on her cheek, his lips warm against her skin. Good night, Elena Reyes. Good night, she whispered, and slipped out the door before she could change her mind about leaving. Back in her room, Elena kicked off her shoes and sat on the edge of the bed, replaying the evening in her mind. What was she doing? Getting involved with a man like Dominic Vega was asking for heartbreak. He lived in a world of wealth and privilege that she could never belong in. And yet he'd made her feel seen in a way no one had in years. Not as a caretaker, or a reliable friend, or a skilled nurse, but as a woman with dreams and desires and value. As she got ready for bed, her phone chimed with a text. In case you were wondering, the chef used Madagascar vanilla in the soufflé. That's what you were trying to identify. Sleep well. D. Despite herself, Elena smiled. One dinner didn't have to mean anything. It could just be a nice memory, a story to tell when she got back to Brooklyn. Remember that time I accidentally slept in a billionaire's bed? She slipped under the covers, telling herself it was better this way. Keep it simple, no complications. But as sleep claimed her, she couldn't help but wonder what might happen if, just once, she took a risk on something completely impractical, like falling for a man who lived in a different world. Elena spent the next morning helping Maria with wedding preparations, arranging welcome bags filled with luxury New York souvenirs and miniature bottles of champagne. She told her cousin about her dinner with Dominic, carefully editing out the more emotional moments. So, he wants to be your date to the wedding? Maria asked, tying a silk ribbon on another bag. And you said no? I said I'd think about it, Elena corrected, adding a box of gourmet chocolates to a bag. What's there to think about? He's handsome, successful, and clearly interested in you. That's exactly the problem. Why would someone like him be interested in someone like me? Maria set down her ribbon and faced her cousin directly. Because you're wonderful, and apparently he's smart enough to see that. Or he's bored, and I'm a distraction. Or you've been alone so long you can't recognize genuine interest when you see it. Maria's tone softened. Not every man is like Ryan, you know. Elena winced at the mention of her ex-boyfriend who had ended their relationship 2 years ago when her demanding schedule became too much for him to handle. This isn't about Ryan. Isn't it? You've been protecting yourself ever since he left. But life goes on, Elena. You don't have to keep putting yours on hold. Before Elena could respond, her phone chimed with a text from Dominic. Morning. Hope you slept well. Any chance you're free for lunch? Maria peeked over her shoulder and grinned. Say yes. I'm supposed to be helping you, Elena protested. We're almost done, and the bridal shower isn't until 2. Maria nudged her. Go have lunch with the handsome billionaire. Live a little. After a moment's hesitation, Elena replied, Lunch sounds nice. Where? His response came quickly. Meet me in the lobby at noon. Casual dress. Taking you to my favorite spot. Not fancy, but authentic. At noon, Elena found Dominic waiting in the lobby. He looked different in casual clothes. Dark jeans, a soft gray Henley, and leather boots. More approachable, more real somehow. The absence of his business attire revealed a physicality his suits had only hinted at. You look nice, he said, his eyes warming as they took her in. She'd chosen a simple sundress and sandals, her hair loose around her shoulders. So do you, she replied, surprised by how happy she was to see him. He drove them in his car, not the flashy sports car she'd expected, but a vintage Land Rover that had clearly been lovingly restored. It was my grandfather's, he explained when he saw her surprise. I restored it myself. You restore cars too? Elena asked as they pulled away from the hotel. Just this one. My grandfather taught me to drive in this car. We used to go camping upstate when I was a teenager. Some of my best memories are in this vehicle. This glimpse into his past made Dominic seem more human. Not just a wealthy tech mogul, but someone with a history, with cherished memories. Just like her. He took her to a small restaurant in a residential neighborhood far from the tourist areas. It was barely more than a hole in the wall with mismatched tables and chairs and no air conditioning. "Best Cuban food in Manhattan," Dominic said as they joined the line of locals waiting to order. "I hope you're not disappointed. It's not exactly the Parkview." "Are you kidding? This is much better than fancy," Elena said truthfully, already bad. "No," Maya said firmly. "You've done enough already. I can't take your money too. It wouldn't be charity, it would be an investment." He served the pasta onto plates. "Think about it." Before Maya could respond, the doorbell rang, followed by insistent knocking. Ethan frowned. "Stay here," he instructed, moving toward the front door. Maya's heart raced as she heard voices in the hallway. Ethan's deep tone, and then another voice that made her blood run cold. Alexander. Maya froze, unsure whether to hide or confront Alexander. The decision was made for her when both men appeared in the kitchen doorway. Alexander's handsome face was tight with barely controlled rage. "So this is where you've been hiding," he said, his eyes raking over her before turning accusingly to Ethan. "With him." Ethan's expression was dangerously calm. "Mr. Rothwell, as I explained, Maya is here as my guest. She doesn't wish to speak with you." "I don't care what you think she wishes," Alexander snapped. "Maya, get your things. We're leaving." Maya found her voice. "No, Alexander. I'm not going anywhere with you." "This isn't a game, Maya. Do you have any idea what you've done? The embarrassment you've caused? My father had to call in favors just to keep this out of the national press." "I'm sorry for embarrassing you," Maya said, "but I'm not sorry for leaving. We shouldn't be together." Alexander laughed coldly. "And what? You think you belong with him?" He gestured dismissively at Ethan. "You've known this man for what, a week? I've invested 2 years in you, Maya. 2 years of molding you, introducing you to the right people, teaching you how to behave in my world." "That's exactly the problem," Maya replied, anger rising. "You are trying to mold me into someone I'm not. I don't want to be in your world if it means losing myself." Alexander stepped toward her, but Ethan moved between them. "I think you should leave," Ethan said, his voice deadly quiet. "This doesn't concern you, Drake. You're in my house, threatening a woman under my protection. It very much concerns me." The two men stared at each other, tension crackling between them. Finally, Alexander took a step back. "This isn't over," he said to Maya. "You signed a prenuptial agreement. The engagement ring alone is worth $70,000. I could sue you for breach of promise. Take the ring. Take everything you ever gave me. I don't want any of it." "It's not about the things, Maya. It's about the principle. No one leaves Alexander Rothwell. No one." He turned to Ethan. "And you. You think I don't know who you are? The tech genius with the troubled past. I have friends in high places. I can make things very difficult for your company." Ethan's smile was chilling. "I welcome you to try, Mr. Rothwell. Now get out of my house before I have security remove you." For a moment, Alexander looked like he might lunge at Ethan. Instead, he straightened his expensive jacket and gave Maya one last cold look. "You'll regret this," he promised before storming out. When the front door slammed, Maya let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Ethan turned to her, concern evident in his eyes. "Are you all right?" She nodded, though she was shaking. "How did he find me?" "That's something we need to figure out." Ethan pulled out his phone. "I'm having my security team do a sweep of the house and grounds. If he planted something or someone tracked you here, we'll find it." As the reality of Alexander's threats sank in, Maya felt tears welling up. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. I've brought nothing but trouble to your door." To her surprise, Ethan reached out and took her hand. His touch was warm, reassuring. "Maya, look at me," he said gently. When she met his eyes, he continued. Alexander Rothwell is a bully who's used to getting his way. Men like him make threats because they've learned it works. But I promise you, he can't hurt me, and as long as you're here, he can't hurt you either." The conviction in his voice made her believe him. Ethan Drake might be a mystery in many ways, but one thing was becoming clear. Beneath his reserved exterior was a man of remarkable strength and surprising tenderness. And despite the chaos swirling around them, she found herself drawn to that strength, wanting to know more about the man who had become her unexpected refuge. The morning after Alexander's unexpected visit, Ethan's security team arrived early. They were thorough and professional, sweeping the entire property for surveillance devices. By noon, they had their answer. "We found a tracker on the wedding, green, that would bring out the gold flecks in her brown eyes. The note read, 'No pressure, but if you decide to come, I thought you might like options. Either way, I'll be in the lobby at 6. Elena sat on the bed, the dress in her lap. This man was making it very hard to be practical. Her phone rang. Maria again. "The father of the groom is being difficult," her cousin said without preamble. "Apparently, he's invited some business associate to the rehearsal dinner without telling anyone, and now we're scrambling to rearrange the seating. Do you have a +1 yet? Because if not, I'm going to have to put you at the table with Great Aunt Lucia, who will spend the entire evening asking why you're still single." Elena closed her eyes. The universe seemed determined to push her toward Dominic. "Actually," she said slowly, "I might have someone." After hanging up, Elena stared at the green dress. It was beautiful, and she knew it would fit perfectly, just like the blue one had. At 5:55, she entered the hotel lobby wearing the green dress and a pair of silver earrings borrowed from Maria. Her hair was swept up in a simple but elegant style, and she'd taken more care with her makeup than usual. Dominic was already there, looking devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit. His face lit up when he saw her, and he crossed the lobby to meet her. "You came," he said, as if he couldn't quite believe it. "I did." Elena smoothed the skirt of the dress. "Thank you for this. It's beautiful." "You're beautiful," he corrected. "The dress is just fabric." Elena blushed. "My cousin called. Apparently, the father of the groom has invited some business associate to the rehearsal dinner. They need extra bodies to balance the tables." "Ah." Dominic's smile dimmed slightly. "So I'm filling a chair." "No," Elena said quickly. "You're my +1, if you still want to be." The smile returned, brighter than before. "I do." The rehearsal dinner was held at an upscale restaurant overlooking the East River. Twinkling lights were strung across the terrace, and flowers adorned every surface. Elena introduced Dominic to her family, trying not to notice how Maria's eyebrows shot up when she realized who Elena's date was. "Dominic Vega," Maria whispered when they had a moment alone. "You didn't tell me it was that Dominic." Would it have made a difference? Of course not, but still. Maria looked impressed. "He can't take his eyes off you, you know." Elena glanced across the room where Dominic was chatting with Carter, Maria's fiancé. "It's not serious, Maria. Don't make it into something it's not. The man sent you 2 designer dresses in 2 days. He's not looking for casual, sweetie." Before Elena could respond, a commotion at the entrance caught everyone's attention. William Sheffield, Carter's father, had arrived with his wife and a business associate in tow. Elena recognized the newcomer immediately, though it had been 2 years since she'd seen him. Ryan Anderson, her ex-boyfriend, looked exactly the same. Tall, blonde, and conventionally handsome in an unmemorable way. They had dated for 3 years before he'd ended things, claiming her work schedule made a real relationship impossible. "Who invited Ryan?" she heard someone whisper. "That's Carter's new hire at the firm," another guest responded. "He's been working there for about a year now." Across the room, Dominic had gone very still, his eyes fixed on Elena's reaction. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees as Ryan spotted Elena and stopped short. "What is she doing here?" Ryan asked loudly, pointing at Elena. The room fell silent. Carter stepped forward, confusion on his face. "She's the bride's cousin. Why wouldn't she be here?" "Because she'll ruin the evening by disappearing halfway through to handle some medical emergency." "That's what she does," Ryan said bitterly. Elena felt rooted to the spot as tension filled the room. Maria appeared at her side. "What's going on?" "That's my ex," Elena whispered back. "The one who couldn't handle my career." William Sheffield took control of the situation, stepping between his son's colleague and the rest of the guests. "This is neither the time nor the place, Ryan. We're here to celebrate Carter and Maria." "Fine," Ryan said, his voice tight. "But don't expect me to pretend I'm happy to see the woman who always put her patients before our relationship." A collective murmur went through the room. Elena felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment and anger. Dominic crossed the room to stand beside her, his hand coming to rest lightly at the small of her back. "That's an interesting perspective," Dominic said, his voice calm but carrying authority. "I think a man would be proud to be with a woman whose work literally saves lives." Ryan's eyes narrowed as he took in Dominic's expensive suit and confident bearing. "And you are?" "Dominic Vega, Elena's date." Recognition dawned on Ryan's face, followed quickly by disbelief. "You're dating Dominic Vega now? What, did you sleep in his hospital room or something?" "Actually, she slept in my bed," Dominic replied smoothly. "And I found her commitment to healing others to be one of her most attractive qualities." Elena's mouth dropped open slightly. She hadn't expected Dominic to defend her so publicly or so effectively. The tension was unbearable. Maria looked torn between fascination at the drama and concern for her cousin's embarrassment. Carter was trying to calm Ryan while shooting apologetic looks at his fiancée. Elena knew she had to do something. This was her fight, not Dominic's. "Ryan," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm sorry if seeing me is uncomfortable for you. But this evening isn't about us. It's about Maria and Carter. Perhaps we can be civil for their sake." She turned to the room at large. "I apologize for the disruption. Please, everyone enjoy your evening." With dignity intact, she glanced at Dominic, who offered his arm. She took it, feeling a curious mix of embarrassment and pride as they made their way to their assigned table. Once seated, Dominic leaned close. "Are you okay?" "I will be," Elena said, taking a deep breath. "Thank you for defending me, but you didn't have to." "I wanted to," he said simply. "That man is a fool." She looked at him, surprised by the quiet intensity in his voice. "You barely know me. I know enough." The rest of the dinner proceeded without incident. Ryan kept his distance, though Elena could feel his occasional glare from across the room. Dominic remained attentive, steering conversations toward pleasant topics and making her family laugh with unexpected charm. By dessert, the earlier drama had mostly been forgotten, overshadowed by toasts to the happy couple and stories about their courtship. As the evening wound down, Dominic and Elena stepped out onto the restaurant's terrace for a moment of quiet. The New York skyline glittered before them, lights reflecting on the dark river. "Thank you for coming with me tonight," Elena said, leaning against the railing. "Even with the drama." "Especially with the drama," Dominic corrected, standing close beside her. "It was enlightening." "How so?" "It helped me understand you better." His eyes were serious in the dim light. "Your ex-boyfriend resented your dedication to saving lives. That says everything about him and nothing about you." Elena looked away, watching a boat move slowly along the river. "It wasn't that simple. I did miss a lot of important events because of work. Birthdays, anniversaries. Did you miss them because you were shopping or getting your nails done?" "Of course not. I was working. Keeping people alive," Dominic clarified. "That's not something to apologize for, Elena." He turned to face her fully. "Do you know what I saw tonight when you handled that situation?" "Strength. Grace under pressure. The same qualities that probably make you excellent in the emergency room." Elena felt something shift inside her at his words. For years, she'd carried the weight of Ryan's accusations, that she was too dedicated to her work, that she couldn't balance her professional and personal life. Hearing Dominic reframe those same qualities as strengths rather than flaws felt like putting down a heavy burden she hadn't realized she was carrying. "Our tour tomorrow morning," Dominic said, changing the subject. "Still on? After all this, you still want to show me around?" "More than ever," he said, his voice sincere. 8 o'clock? Elena nodded, grateful for his understanding. 8 it is. When they returned to the hotel, Dominic walked her to her door. The hallway was quiet, their footsteps muffled by the plush carpet. "Thank you again for tonight," Elena said as they reached her room. "It wasn't exactly the evening I promised you." "It was perfect," Dominic contradicted her gently. "I got to spend time with you. That's all I wanted." He was standing close, his dark eyes intent on hers. Elena felt her heart beating faster, aware of how easy it would be to invite him in, to see where this undeniable attraction might lead. Instead, she said, "I should get some rest." 8 comes early. Was that disappointment that flickered across his face? If so, he masked it quickly. "Of course. Sleep well, Elena." He leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to her cheek, his lips lingering just a moment longer than necessary. "Good night." "Good night, Dominic." Inside her room, Elena leaned against the closed door, touching her fingers to the spot where his lips had been. What was happening to her? 2 days ago, she'd been a practical, no-nonsense emergency nurse with no time for romance. Now she was contemplating feelings for a billionaire she'd met by accident. It was absurd. It was impractical. It was the most alive she'd felt in years. Her phone chimed with a text. "Thank you for letting me be part of your evening. Your strength continues to impress me. Sleep well, D." Despite herself, Elena smiled. Tomorrow's tour couldn't come soon enough. She woke early the next morning, her dreams a jumbled mess of wedding dresses and confrontations with ex-boyfriends. After the drama at the rehearsal dinner, she'd spent a restless night questioning her decision to see Dominic again. Maria had called late, demanding details. Elena had shared what little there was to tell, which only led to more questions she couldn't answer. "Are you sure you want to get involved with someone with his kind of profile?" Maria had asked. The media attention, the public scrutiny. It was a fair question. The practical answer was no. But as Elena dressed for her morning with Dominic, she admitted to herself that practicality wasn't driving her decisions anymore. She chose a casual outfit, jeans, a light sweater, comfortable walking shoes. No borrowed finery today. If Dominic was going to show her his Manhattan, she wanted to be herself. At precisely 8, she found him waiting in the lobby. He wore khaki pants and a faded blue button-down with the sleeves rolled up, looking more like a local guide than a tech mogul. "You came," he said, relief evident in his voice. "I said I would. After last night, I wouldn't have blamed you for changing your mind." Dominic's expression was contrite. "I'm sorry about what happened with your ex. I hope my intervention didn't make things worse." "You didn't," Elena assured him. "Ryan was the one who created the scene, not you." "So what's the plan for this morning?" she asked, eager to move past the topic of her ex. His face brightened. "I thought we'd start with breakfast at a place tourists never find, then a walking tour of my favorite spots in the city." "Lead on," Elena said, falling into step beside him as they left the hotel. The morning air was crisp with the promise of a beautiful day. Dominic led her down quiet side streets away from the main tourist areas, pointing out historical details most visitors missed: hidden gardens, architectural quirks, spots where Revolutionary War heroes had once stood. "How do you know all this?" Elena asked as they paused to admire a secret courtyard tucked between buildings. "My grandfather was obsessed with New York history. He used to take me on walks like this when I was a boy." Dominic's eyes softened with memory. He believed knowing the past was essential to building the future. "Is that why you became a tech innovator? To build the future?" "Partly, though not the way my father wanted." Dominic guided her down another narrow street. He saw technology as a means to accumulate wealth. "I see it as a tool to solve real problems." "What does that mean in practice?" "It means I focus my company on projects with meaningful impact. Renewable energy solutions, medical technology, agricultural innovations for food-insecure regions." Pride crept into his voice. "Like the portable water purification system we developed. It's now in use in over 40 countries where clean water access is limited." Elena looked at him with new interest. "That's not what I expected." "Because tech billionaires are supposed to be building rocket ships to escape Earth rather than trying to fix it?" There was no bitterness in his tone, just gentle teasing. "Something like that," she admitted. "Don't get me wrong, I have my share of luxury projects too," he said. but they fund the ones that matter more. They stopped at a tiny cafe, tucked away on a residential corner. The elderly woman behind the counter greeted Dominic by name and insisted on making their breakfast herself. They sat at a small table by the window, eating the best bagels Elena had ever tasted and drinking coffee from mismatched mugs. "Mrs. Abramowitz has been making those bagels since I was in college," Dominic said. "I used to come here every Sunday morning to study." "You grew up nearby?" Elena asked, realizing how little she knew about his past. "About 10 blocks from here," he said, pointing. "My family's brownstone is still there, though my parents moved to Florida years ago. I have a loft in Tribeca, but it's being renovated, hence the hotel suite." "And the Ryan situation," Elena ventured, unable to ignore the lingering tension from the previous night. "Does that happen often, running into people with grievances?" Dominic set down his coffee mug. "No, New York is a big city. I tend to keep to myself." He held her gaze steadily. "And for the record, I think your ex is wrong about you. Your dedication to your work isn't a flaw. It's admirable. It can be hard on relationships," Elena said, stirring her coffee. "Only with the wrong partner," Dominic countered. "The right person would support your calling, not resent it." Elena studied him, wondering if he could possibly be that right person. "So why me? What made you decide not to call security when you found me in your bed?" Dominic considered the question. "Honestly, you looked so peaceful and so real. Not polished or perfect, just human." His eyes crinkled at the corners. "Then you mumbled something about emergency protocols in your sleep, and I was intrigued. So I have my medical training to thank for this tour. Partly, but mostly it was the way you handled yourself the next morning. Embarrassed, but dignified. Most women I know would have either flirted their way out of the situation or had a meltdown." "I considered both," Elena admitted, making him laugh. After breakfast, they continued their walk through hidden parts of the city. Dominic showed her secret gardens and hidden alleyways, telling stories about New York's past that no guidebook contained. He took her to a small, tucked-away park where he'd played as a child, and to the bakery that had made his birthday cakes for 18 years. It was the most personal tour Elena could imagine. A glimpse not just of Manhattan, but of the boy Dominic had been and the man he'd become. As the morning warmed, they found themselves at the East River, watching boats glide across the sparkling water. "One last stop," Dominic said, leading her toward a weathered building that appeared abandoned. A faded sign read, "Riverside Medical College, East Screw, 1887. "What is this place?" Elena asked, as he produced a key and unlocked the front door. "A piece of history. And maybe something more." Dominic held the door for her. "After you." Elena stepped inside, blinking as her eyes adjusted to the dimmer light. The interior was dusty but intact. A grand old lobby with a sweeping staircase, high ceilings with ornate moldings, and tall windows that let in streams of sunlight. "This used to be one of the first women's medical colleges in New York," Dominic explained, moving through the space with obvious familiarity. "Built in 1887, operated until 1950 when it merged with Columbia. It's been empty since the 1980s. "It's beautiful," Elena said, running her fingers along a wooden banister. Even under decades of dust, the craftsmanship was evident. "The architecture is incredible. I thought you might appreciate its potential." Dominic watched her explore with a small smile. "I bought it last year. Been trying to decide what to do with it." "You could restore it as a medical museum," Elena suggested, wandering into what must have been a lecture hall. The tiered seating was still visible, though the wooden chairs were draped in cloths. "The history of women in medicine is fascinating." "That's one option," Dominic followed her, "but I was thinking of something more specific." "Like what?" "Like a training center for emergency medicine." He said the words casually, but his eyes were intent on her face. "The kind that could host international conferences on improving triage protocols in mass casualty events." Elena froze, her heart suddenly racing. "That sounds familiar." "It should, it's your research." Dominic stepped closer. "I've been looking for the right project to give back to the medical community, and possibly the right person to help bring it to life." "Dominic, listen. Just hear me out," he said quickly. I'm not proposing anything crazy, just a potential partnership. This building, your expertise. We could create a center for emergency medicine training that could change how first responders are educated worldwide. Elena shook her head, overwhelmed. You can't be serious. We barely know each other. I know enough. His voice was earnest now. I know you're brilliant at what you do. I know you understand emergency medicine in a way I never could. And I know this building has been sitting empty for a year because I was waiting for the right purpose. A partnership, Elena repeated, trying to wrap her head around the concept based on just 2 days of conversation. Sometimes you just know. Dominic spread his hands. Look, I'm not asking for an answer today. The wedding is this afternoon. You go back to Brooklyn tomorrow. Take some time. Think about it. And then what? And then call me if you're interested. We'll talk details. If not, no harm done. His smile was gentle. No pressure, Elena. Just an open door if you want to walk through it. Elena moved to one of the windows, looking out at the river. The possibility Dominic was offering was almost too enormous to comprehend. Her research brought to life on a scale she'd never imagined possible. Why? She asked finally. Why would you do this? Dominic came to stand beside her. Partly because I think it makes sense. This location, your expertise, my resources, it could be something important. And the other part? He turned to face her. Because in 2 days you've made me feel more alive than I have in years. Because when you talk about your work, your whole face lights up with purpose. Because I think we could be good together, Elena Reyes, in this project and maybe in other ways too. His honesty took her breath away. This is insane, she whispered. Maybe? Dominic touched her cheek gently. Or maybe it's the sanest thing either of us has done in a long time. Standing in that dusty, beautiful old building with the morning light streaming through the windows, Elena felt something shift inside her. The practical voice that had guided her for so long was suddenly quiet, replaced by something that felt suspiciously like hope. I need time, she said finally. You have it. Dominic's hand fell away from her face. No rush, no pressure. They left the old medical college, locking the past and perhaps the future behind them. The walk back to the hotel was quieter, both lost in their own thoughts. In the lobby, Dominic stopped. I should let you get ready for the wedding. He hesitated. Will I see you there? Elena nodded. Maria added you to the guest list this morning. Hope flickered in his eyes. If you're sure. I'm not sure about anything right now, she admitted. But I know I want you there. He nodded, his expression softening. Until this afternoon, then. Elena watched him walk away, her mind spinning with possibilities she'd never allowed herself to consider before. The wedding was everything a Manhattan society wedding should be, elegant, excessive, and picture-perfect. Maria was radiant in her designer gown, and Carter looked at her like she was the only woman in the world. Even William Sheffield seemed to have mellowed overnight, beaming proudly as his son said his vows. Elena, seated in the family section, spotted Dominic several rows back. He gave her a small wave but kept his distance as promised. She found herself watching him during the ceremony, wondering what it would be like to build something with him, both a medical center and whatever else might grow between them. At the reception, held in the grand ballroom of a historic hotel, Elena was swept up in family obligations, photos, toasts, dancing with distant relatives she barely remembered. She managed to avoid Ryan, who seemed equally intent on avoiding her after their confrontation the previous night. It wasn't until the evening was well underway that she managed to slip away from the crowd. She found a quiet spot on the terrace away from the music and laughter. The night air was cool, fragrant with flowers from the elaborate arrangements. Hiding? Dominic's voice came from behind her. Elena turned to find him watching her, a glass of champagne in each hand. He offered one to her. Taking a break, she corrected, accepting the glass. It's been a long day. Your cousin looks happy. She does. Elena smiled. They both do. Young love. Dominic sipped his champagne. Remember that feeling? When anything seemed possible. Vaguely, Elena admitted. It's been a while. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. The sounds of the reception a distant backdrop. "I've been thinking about your offer," Elena said finally. "You don't have to decide now." "I know, but I've been thinking anyway." She turned to face him fully. "It's too big, Dominic. Too much. Too fast." Disappointment flickered across his face, but he nodded. "I understand." "No, I don't think you do." Elena set down her champagne glass. "I can't accept a ready-made dream. That's not how dreams work. They're supposed to be earned, built piece by piece." "Is that what your mother would say?" Dominic asked quietly. The question caught her off guard. "What?" "The woman who inspired you to become a nurse. Would she tell you to turn down an opportunity because it came too easily?" Elena thought about her mother, practical but fiercely determined, always pushing her to reach higher. "No," she admitted. "She'd probably tell me to grab it with both hands and not look back. Smart woman. But this isn't just about the medical center." Elena met his gaze. "This is about us, whatever that means. And 2 days isn't enough time to figure that out." Dominic stepped closer. "What if we had more time?" Quote, "What do you mean?" "I'm asking you to stay, Elena, not forever, just a week or 2. Get to know New York better. Get to know me better." His eyes were earnest. "No commitment beyond that. Just time to explore possibilities. I have a job, responsibilities, that you could take a leave from," he suggested. "When was the last time you took a real break?" Elena couldn't remember. "Years, probably." "Stay," Dominic said again, softer this time. "Let's see if this is real, or just a vacation fantasy." Before she could answer, Maria appeared, slightly breathless. "There you are." "I'm about to toss the bouquet, and I'm not doing it without my favorite cousin in the mix." "I'll be right there," Elena promised. To Dominic, she said, "I need to go." "Think about it," he said. "Whatever you decide, I'll respect it." Elena rejoined the reception, dutifully standing with the single women as Maria prepared to toss her bouquet. She wasn't even trying to catch it, but somehow the cluster of white roses and orchids arced directly into her arms. Maria squealed with delight while Elena stood frozen, the symbolic weight of the flowers heavy in her hands. Across the crowd, her eyes found Dominic's. He was smiling as if the universe had just confirmed what he already knew. The morning after the wedding, Elena stood in her hotel room, staring at her packed suitcase. Her flight back to Brooklyn was in 3 hours. Maria had already left for her honeymoon, glowing with happiness as she hugged Elena goodbye. On the desk lay Dominic's business card, beside a single rose that had been delivered to her door during the night. The card attached had read, "The view is better with you here. -D." Elena picked up her phone and dialed the number on the card. Dominic answered on the second ring. "Good morning," he said, his voice warm. "Morning." Elena took a deep breath. "About your offer?" "Yes." The hope in his voice was palpable. "I can't stay right now. I need to go back to Brooklyn, at least temporarily. There are things I need to handle, patients who depend on me." "I understand," Dominic said, the disappointment evident despite his attempt to hide it. But Elena continued, "I'd like to explore the medical center idea. Maybe start with some plans, some research, see if it's viable." "Really?" The hope was back, stronger than before. "Yes, and maybe if you're willing to meet me halfway, we could explore the other possibilities too." "Halfway?" Dominic asked, confused. "Brooklyn is only a few subway stops from Manhattan," Elena explained. "You have a car. I have days off. There are restaurants in between." There was a pause. Then Dominic laughed, the sound genuine and unguarded. "Are you asking me to come visit you, Elena Reyes? I'm suggesting we don't have to rush, but we don't have to end things either." Elena surprised herself with her boldness. "Unless you're only interested if I drop everything and move into your world immediately." "I'm interested in you," Dominic said simply. "The rest is just details." Relief washed over Elena. "Good, because I'd like to see where this goes, even if it's complicated by busy schedules for a while." They made plans for the following weekend. Dominic would come to Brooklyn, see her neighborhood, meet her friends. a chance for him to understand her world the way she'd glimpsed his. After hanging up, Elena finished packing with a lighter heart. Maybe this thing with Dominic was crazy. Maybe it would fizzle out once the novelty wore off. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something real. 4 weeks later, Elena stood in the lobby of the Riverside Medical College, watching workers carefully remove decades of dust and neglect. The renovation had begun, funded by Dominic, but guided by her vision. They had agreed to start with a single floor, a training center with state-of-the-art simulation equipment, classrooms, and technology, to connect with medical professionals worldwide. The past month had been a whirlwind of weekend visits. Dominic to Brooklyn, Elena to Manhattan, and daily phone calls that often lasted until midnight. With each conversation, each shared meal, each quiet moment together, the connection between them deepened. "What do you think?" Dominic asked, coming to stand beside her. "Is it what you imagined?" Elena looked around the space that was slowly coming back to life. "It's better because it's actually happening." He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "Have you thought about the name?" "I have, actually." Elena squeezed his hand. "What about Second Chance Emergency Medicine Institute?" Quote, Dominic raised an eyebrow. "That has specific meaning." "It's how this all started, you giving me a second chance even when you didn't have to." Elena smiled up at him. "It seems fitting." "I like it." Dominic pulled her closer. "It's perfect, actually. Second chances." As workers bustled around them, transforming the old building into something new while preserving its heart, Elena leaned against Dominic's shoulder. The past month had shown her that their worlds, while different, weren't incompatible. His wealth still made her uncomfortable sometimes, but his generosity was genuine, not manipulative. He'd kept his word about meeting her halfway, not just physically by visiting Brooklyn, but emotionally, by respecting her need for independence while offering support. "I have something for you," Dominic said, reaching into his pocket. He produced a small brass key on a ribbon. "It's not what you think," he added quickly when he saw her expression. "It's the original key to this building. I found it in the city archives." Elena took it, feeling the weight of history in her palm. "It's beautiful. I thought it could be a symbol of old things becoming new again, of doors opening instead of closing." "Are you always this romantic?" Elena teased, though she was touched by the gesture. "Only with you," Dominic replied, his eyes serious despite his smile. "You bring it out in me." Later that evening, they returned to the Parkview. Dominic had kept his suite, even though his loft renovation was complete. "For sentimental reasons," he'd said when Elena questioned the expense. As they entered, Elena noticed something new, a small plaque beside the door that hadn't been there that morning. It read, "Reserved for the woman who fell asleep and woke me up." "When did you do this?" she asked, touching the brass plate. "This afternoon." Dominic wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Too much?" "Maybe a little," Elena admitted, though she was smiling. "But I love it anyway." Inside, everything was as it had been that first morning. Warm lighting, soft sheets, even the view of the Manhattan skyline. But this time, there was no confusion, no embarrassment, just two people who had found each other in the most unexpected way. Dominic handed her a mug of coffee, just as he had that first morning. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his own mug. "And to wrong room keys," Elena added, clinking her mug against his. As evening settled over the city, they stood together on the balcony, watching the lights of Manhattan come alive. Elena thought about how much had changed in just 1 month. She had a new purpose, a new direction, and somewhere along the way she had stopped being afraid of taking risks. "What are you thinking?" Dominic asked, his arm warm around her shoulders. "I'm thinking that sometimes the best things in life happen when we least expect them." Elena leaned into him. "And that I'm glad I was too tired to check the room number that night." "So am I," Dominic murmured, pressing a kiss to her hair. In the room behind them, the bed waited. The same bed where their story had begun. But tonight, unlike that first night, Elena wouldn't be alone. And tomorrow morning, when she woke up, Dominic would be there, coffee ready, barefoot, and smiling. Not because fate had thrown them together, but because they had chosen each other deliberately, with eyes wide open and hearts finally ready for the chance they'd been given. Last week, Elena had submitted her resignation to Manhattan General, not to leave nursing, but to lead the Emergency Medicine Institute full-time. Her colleagues had been surprised, but supportive, especially when they learned about the opportunities the new center would create for research and training. And when the International Emergency Medicine Conference convened in Switzerland next month, Elena would be there, not just attending, but presenting her research as the director of a groundbreaking new institute, with Dominic quietly supporting her from the audience. "You know what I've learned from all this?" Elena said, turning in Dominic's arms to face him. "What's that?" he asked, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "That sometimes the wrong room turns out to be exactly the right place." She looked up at him, at this man who had seen her worth from the first moment. "And that second chances are worth taking, no matter how they come to us." Dominic smiled, the same smile that had first caught her attention across a breakfast tray 1 month ago. "I couldn't have said it better myself." As the city lights twinkled below them, Elena thought about the twists of fate that had brought them together. An exhausted nurse, a wrong room key, a billionaire with a generous heart. It wasn't the story she could have written for herself, but it was turning out to be better than anything she could have imagined. And for the first time in years, she was excited to see what tomorrow would bring, knowing that whatever happened, neither of them would wake up alone. 6 months later, the Second Chance Emergency Medicine Institute opened its doors to its first class of international fellows. The renovated building gleamed in the spring sunshine, its historic exterior preserved while the interior had been transformed into a state-of-the-art training facility. Elena stood at the podium, looking out at the assembled crowd of medical professionals, city officials, and journalists. Her research on mass casualty triage protocols had already been implemented in 3 countries, with more expressing interest each week. "Medicine is about healing," she said, her voice steady and confident. "But it's also about connection, the moments when we see each other clearly and choose to help, to heal, to make a difference." In the front row, Dominic watched her with pride, their journey together just beginning. Sometimes the wrong door leads you exactly where you're meant to be. You just have to be brave enough to step through it. The small brass key to the building hung on a silver chain around Elena's neck, a reminder that sometimes the most meaningful journeys begin with a simple mistake and the courage to see where it might lead. "Second chances come in many forms," Elena concluded, looking directly at Dominic. "Our job is to recognize them when they appear, and then to make them count." And they had. They were. They would continue to, day by day, building something lasting and meaningful, together. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us. A simple woman slept in the wrong billionaire's room and woke up to a breakfast filled with romance begins when overworked nurse Elena Reyes, desperate for rest after a triple shift, accidentally enters the wrong penthouse suite, only to wake up to breakfast prepared by Manhattan's most enigmatic and guarded tech mogul. Was it truly an accident that brought them together, or something more powerful than coincidence? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Elena Reyes dragged her exhausted body through the gleaming lobby of the Parkview, a luxury hotel that whispered wealth from every polished surface and crystal chandelier. At 32, she normally wouldn't splurge on such accommodations, but her cousin's wedding coincided with the end of the most grueling week at Manhattan General's emergency department. 3 consecutive shifts had left her barely functional, eyes burning with fatigue, shoulders slumped beneath the weight of lives saved and lost. "Welcome to the Parkview. How may I assist you today?" The receptionist looked up briefly from his computer, his crisp suit, a stark contrast to Elena's rumpled scrubs beneath her coat. "Checking in, Elena Reyes." "My cousin made the reservation," she said, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, raspy from exhaustion. The clerk's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Ah, yes, Ms. Reyes. Your cousin upgraded you to our executive floor, complimentary for valued guests. He slid a key card across the marble counter. Room 1701. The elevators are to your right. Thank you, Elena mumbled, too drained to properly appreciate the upgrade. After delayed flights, a taxi driver who took the longest possible route from the airport, and the crushing weight of losing a patient during her last shift, all she craved was unconsciousness. The elevator ascended silently, its mirrored walls reflecting her haggard appearance. She barely recognized herself. Dark circles shadowed her usually bright eyes, and her olive skin looked pale under the elevator's unforgiving lights. Her mother would have scolded her for not taking better care of herself. Following the signs along a corridor with plush carpeting that seemed to swallow her footsteps, Elena found room 1701 and swiped the keycard. The green light flashed, and she pushed the door open, immediately enveloped by the subtle scent of sandalwood and citrus. The suite was magnificent, more spacious than her entire Brooklyn apartment. Soft lighting illuminated cream-colored walls adorned with original artwork. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the glittering Manhattan skyline. In the center of the room sat a king-sized bed that looked like it had been crafted by angels, covered with what appeared to be 1,000 thread-count sheets and an assortment of pillows. Maria really outdid herself, Elena whispered, dropping her worn duffel bag by the door. She kicked off her sensible nursing shoes and didn't even consider unpacking or changing out of her day-old clothes. The magnetic pull of that bed was irresistible. After 26 hours of staying upright, Elena collapsed onto the cloud-like mattress, pulled a cashmere throw over her shoulders, and surrendered to sleep within seconds. Dominic Vega loosened his tie as he entered his private penthouse suite at the Parkview. At 38, he'd built Vega Technologies from a startup in his garage to a multi-billion-dollar empire, revolutionizing artificial intelligence and sustainable energy. But days like today, filled with boardroom battles and shareholder doubts, made him question if success was worth the isolation it brought. He frowned when he noticed the "Do Not Disturb" sign hanging on his door. He hadn't placed it there, and his exacting standards meant his staff knew better than to make decisions about his space without consultation. Using his master keycard, he entered silently, wondering if his assistant had arranged an unexpected meeting. The main living area was empty, immaculate as always, but as he approached the bedroom, he stopped abruptly. There, curled up on his bed, was a woman he had never seen before, fast asleep. Her dark hair spilled across his pillow, and she'd somehow managed to cocoon herself in his favorite